survive, but be on life support. So it doesn't mean that you are whole. It means that you're not dead. Just because you're surviving, it doesn't mean you're living. Healing is not supposed to feel good all the time. It's not supposed to be fun. It heals from the inside out.
Thank you for choosing this Well Chat. To support future episodes, consider purchasing a Freedom Art Mat or a vegan leather journal at freedomatthemat.com. We're a nonprofit dedicated to improving the lives of women globally through wellness education and appreciate your support. Now, on to the conversation.
Hi, everybody. It's Olivia. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Well Chat. You know, we often talk about mental and physical health, but we often overlook emotional health, which we must get in check if we're really going to encounter true wellness. So today, I'm grateful to be joined by C. Anderson. She's a licensed hypnotherapist and executive coach dedicated to helping people release the past, rewire their subconscious, and rise into their next evolution. As a holistic health expert, she uniquely combines psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, and Reiki, which is really interesting. We'll talk about what Reiki is. A lot of you guys want to know what that is. To support trauma recovery, honest healing, and helping people move forward and toward their life that they want, the relationships they crave, and the peace they desire in their lives. She's been featured in Forbes, Cosmopolitan, NPR, The Strong Woman's Guide, just to name a few, and she's here with us today. So, welcome, C. How you doing today?
I am fantastic. Thank you for having me, Olivia.
So, I love that you lead a mental health practice based in Montgomery, which serves Alabama, Georgia, and Washington, D.C. Please begin by telling us what led you into this line of work.
So I tell people all the time, it was not me, okay? It was God, because initially I wanted to be a dentist. I was at Howard University. I was pre-dental, and we had this pre-professional program, and you got to shadow the profession that you were intending to focus on. And so I shadowed the hospital in the dental suite, and I was like, I can't do this. I cannot spend my life dabbling in anybody's mouth.
This isn't going to work.
And it was the end of my junior year. So I have to quickly pivot, right? And so I took a class, and it was intro to psychology. And there was something that the professor said. He said that your recollection of your experiences is not invalidated by others. And for me, growing up in a home that was unpredictable, violent, a lot of times the things I experienced, I would be gaslit. I didn't know that word back then, but I was always questioning whether or not I had experienced what I did. And so when he said that, it opened up something in me, and I immediately said, this is where I'm supposed to be. And so I crammed all of my classes in. I think I took like 20 something credits a semester, graduated on time, and I've been on this path since.
You go get her if you did all that and still graduated on time. May God bless you. God. You know, I want to shout out to the teachers. They tell you, I've been a professor, adjunct professor for a while, and we had to watch a training video at Loyola and talked about the people who are most influential in a child's life: parents, preachers, and teachers.
Yes.
Right? And
Yes.
so that teacher dropped a word and your spirit didn't even know it changed the entire trajectory of your life.
Yes, the entire, and he was actually also a minister of divinity. And so he was both a clinical psychologist and a minister of divinity. And it was like God sent him for that time, for right then, right there, because that is what I needed. And so he was absolutely a significant voice and influence, and still is for me.
Awesome. You still in touch?
I have not spoken with Dr. Hobson in a couple of years, but I may reach out now.
There you go. There you go. We'll make sure we share this with them, right? So can you tell us, because it sounds like, you had to connect, you were being gaslit, or you were gaslit, not that it was actively done or, consciously done in your household, but you had to connect with honesty, right? And your emotions and how you were feeling. What does honest self-awareness mean to you? And why is it such an important part of healing?
That is the question, because we live in a society that masks almost everything, right? We live in a society that is far from authentic, right? Because we have social media, the highlight reel of people's lives. And so for me, I can only show up in truth with myself, with my patients, with my clients when I am being honest, right? And so honesty means that I'm looking at whatever the thing is, whatever the feeling is, attempting to judge it without attempting to fix it and without comparing it to somebody else's journey. So when I can look at something in truth, right, it allows me to say, okay, here's what is happening. Whatever it is, here is where I desire to be or change or be effective. What is the gap? And so when you are not self-aware, you cannot gauge the gap in between where you are and the person that you claim you are or want to become.
Okay, let's go deeper. What helps, because this is what you do all the time, executive coach, you're a hypnotherapist, licensed clinical therapist as well. What helps people feel safe enough to be honest with themselves? Because I think, feel safe, or what holds them back? Because
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you around it's necessary to have that level of authenticity and honesty with yourself to fill the gap of where I am now and where I want to be and what's holding me back. But if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. So what helps you feel enough?
So the first thing I do with anybody that I'm working with, regardless of the capacity, is create subconscious safety. And what that means is that everybody has something that they are in fear of, that they feel they'll be judged for, that they feel they'll be rejected because of. And so even when people come and sit on my therapy couch, my room, my office is set up, right, to say, you are welcome here. This space was created for you. And then along with my energy, my words, the way that I greet people, I try to talk to people on a level that's very relatable, because nobody cares about the clinical terms. They care about, do you care and can you help me, right? So my goal is to make them feel comfortable. And sometimes it's literally as easy as the tone of my voice, because some people aren't used to being talked to in a way that is kind,
right,
and gentle, not rushed, not I'm asking you to perform. And so creating that safety in whatever way I need to do that, right? And sometimes I'll ask people, what makes you feel comfortable and what makes you feel unsafe? And I'll say, can you scale that for me on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most safe? How safe are you feeling in this space right now? And they'll say a 4. Okay. How can we get you to a 5, right?
Right.
Because I don't know what safety looks like for every individual. So it's my job to pay attention and to gauge so that safety first, vulnerability and trust, and then that honesty starts to peek its head out.
Got you. Okay. Thank you. So let's talk about emotional wellness and emotional healing. That mentioned earlier, I think, physical health we've known about forever. Gotta move, gotta be active. It's becoming a lot more popular, especially after COVID, to focus on our mental health. And we're grateful for that. You'd mentioned to me offline that, it's now more normalized for Black people to go to therapy, which is a huge leap from those of us who just, our minister was our therapist, right? So we're grateful for that. But when we talk about emotional healing, can you tell us how you feel emotional healing can become a path to freedom in someone's life?
Yes. So a lot of times we are so external. We're looking at, oh, well, my bank account looks like this. My body is really strong. But I have seen some of the world's most intelligent, charismatic, and physically strong individuals in their lives, because mentally and emotionally, they were struggling and in such great pain. And one of the things that I like to make clear to people is you are only as healthy as your mental and emotional self, right? So that mental piece, which is composed of our feelings and our thoughts, right? Our emotions give us feedback. So your emotional health is telling you what your experience is in your environment and in interactions with other people. It's also giving you feedback about the lens through which you view the world in yourself. And so it gives a lot of information about where you are exactly. So then we can see, well, what is unhealthy that's happening here, both subjective and objective, right? So that, think of it as your readout, right? If you're in the hospital, they have a monitor that shows your heart rate and it shows your oxygen level and all those other vitals, right?
Right.
Your emotional health is the vital statistic of your existence.
May I interrupt you for a moment? Because I want to
Of
break down for
course.
people what emotions are. When we're talking about emotional, because it took me a long time. I honestly didn't realize until last year the distinction between emotional health and mental health. I thought they were the same.
Yes, correct.
But when you talk about your feelings and feeling
Mhm.
sad and how, or feeling
Mhm.
happy or whatever you're feeling, how that is a pipeline to your mental health. Do you mind just breaking that down just a little bit more for us on
Sure.
how it
Sure,
is?
right? So when we talk about mental, we're talking about a lot of times the brain and the behavior, right? When we're talking about your mental health, we're talking about your mental state. Your emotions fluctuate literally from hour to hour, right? Somebody could be joyous and happy right now. 10 minutes later, they're embarrassed about something or they're angry or they're frustrated. Your mental state doesn't fluctuate as frequently. So when we're talking about your feelings, we're talking about what is the physiological and also the emotional response to whatever is happening, what you're thinking, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're experiencing. When we're talking about your mental state, we are speaking about, is your mental state and or mood, is it depressive, right? Is there any mania present? Are there any sort of indicators that would tell a professional or just someone that might be around you that you are in a place of deficit? Maybe not knowing where you are, maybe not being able to cope and to maintain your daily lifestyle, things like that. But your emotions can change from minute to minute to hour.
Got it. Thank you so much for that.
Talking about a trigger, we are talking about a point, a place inside of you that needs your attention, that may be unresolved, that may be a little tender still to the touch. The way that a trigger can show up is a change in your emotion or the way that you are feeling in the moment, right? And so when people say, oh, you're triggered, that's not always the case, right? People might just be responding. The true trigger, right? I can say, well, it sounds like there's something there. What do you think that's pointing to? What, if it could talk, what would it tell us? Right? And then people go back to their past or something that they've been struggling with that's been there for a while. So I love triggers because they tell us what we need to work on, what needs a little bit of attention, love, and acknowledgement. Sometimes it's just the acknowledgement that is healing and a release.
Got it. So thank you for clarifying, being the voice of reason and expertise, because I would have everybody out here to my triggers and fear. You're like, no, let me break it down for you. So thank you. So, I listened to your TEDx talk, which I recommend everybody, find. Candace C. Anderson. It was very moving. And you made a soul-stirring statement. What would you do on this day if you knew exactly how your life would end? I want you to tell us how you arrived at this and how this thinking can help people.
So I am empathic, right? So I feel things really deeply. And I've always been that way. I mean, since I was a child. And so I was watching this movie. The movie is called Big Fish, one of my favorite movies. And in the movie, these kids, there's a old lady in the neighborhood who they think is a witch, right? And they say, well, if you look into her eye, she has a patch, then you'll see how you die. So the kids go up to her and she flips the patch and they all see how their life will end. One character, he was so fearless throughout his entire life because he saw how his life would end, right? So he took risk. He took chances. And every time somebody said, no, that's not safe. Why do you want to do that? He would say, this is not how I die, right? And so that that shifted something in me, because here's what happens. Your nervous system is wired. You are born with a certain level of fear so that you can survive, so that you can sense danger, so that you can run away or fight or pass out, whichever is going to be safest for you.
Right.
But we are still in a primitive state in our nervous system. And so it sees the most innocuous or mundane things as threats sometimes. And so we will say, oh, I want that new job. Well, that means you got to meet new people. You got to get, acclimated. That's scary. Okay, I'm just going to stay here and be miserable. So when you understand,
Yeah.
and I say it often when I'm up against a challenge, this is not how I die, right? Meaning I'm going to survive this. This is just part of my path. So let's get to it.
Got it. Let's get going with that.
Yes. So it helps me listen to my heart, my soul, what I'm being led to do, and not the fear, the false evidence appearing real.
Correct. Because that fear is what's going to hold you back.
Yeah, it can
from
be
living your purpose.
paralyzing for a lot of people. And Olivia, the thing that's interesting is that I think the study shows that about 85% of what we're fearful of never happens.
Yes.
So we spend so much time allowing the stories, right, that our imagination, our mind comes up with, set in as reality. Things that
Right.
have not happened and probably won't happen. And we are basing our behavior, our actions off of that. We're missing out.
One of my therapists said to me recently, and I say one because I've had several over the years, a divorce therapist, a marriage, all these different therapists you have, right?
Yeah.
But one that I had recently, I was going through what you were saying about, and what if this happened, this happens, and what about, and she says, has it never not worked out, right? Because it may not work out the way you thought, but the universe is course correcting and it will work out
Absolutely.
ultimately, right?
Yes.
You just kind of have to release and lean into the fact, to your point, that it is a part of your path and it's going to work out. So I want you to
Mhm.
tell us, how do you help people move from pain into their personal power?
I like to describe it as transmuting the pain, not eliminating the pain, right? Because that's not something I have control over. And a lot of times they don't necessarily have control over. And just like most of what we feel, pain is also an indicator, right? Sometimes it's grief, right? Reaching out for something that's no longer available. Sometimes it's past pain, but whatever that pain is, there's so much beauty and lesson in the pain. A lot of times it's how we frame it, right?
Yep.
So, and sometimes we allow pain prevent us from moving forward and kind of be a scapegoat, right? Like, this is a challenge. This is uncomfortable. This is painful. So I'm going to avoid it. Well, guess what? There are just some things in life that if you don't walk through the pain, you will not get what you want. You won't get it.
Yeah.
Because what you want and what you desire is on the other side of the pain, because in that pain is a new version of you. In that pain is this completely new identity and perspective. Some of the most prolific and profound people have had some of the most painful existences. And so when you avoid it, how are you getting to power? How are you becoming empowered, meaning you have the tools within you, right?
Yeah.
So I like to tell them, okay, we're building muscles, right? So just like when you're in the gym
Yeah.
and you start to add, reps, or you start to add, more weight, those muscles are being ripped apart, right? So
Yeah.
as those muscles are being ripped apart, we are doing things to repair the muscles, like drinking protein and creatine and all of those things, right? So that the muscle grows and gets stronger. So as life is sometimes ripping you apart, you are pouring into yourself. You are learning new skills. You're getting more insight and understanding of who you are, who you desire to be, so that you grow stronger and that your purpose and who you are becomes so amplified that you then get to you get to like that gets to resonate with others, because it's not just for us.
Right. So that pain, we actually need that pain. The
Oh
pain is
yeah.
so go back. I know you're a hypnotherapist and you'd mentioned
Mm-hmm.
this whole transmutation. Tell
Mm-hmm.
us how in your practice you
Mm-hmm.
transmute and you support people with your hypnotherapy and Reiki, however you want to share with us.
Yeah, my goal right now is to demystify hypnosis and hypnotherapy for communities of color, particularly Black folks, because what hypnosis does, first of all, we pass through the same hypnotic state twice a day at minimum when we are falling asleep and when we are waking up. Other times we find ourselves in a hypnotic state, which is a lowering of the brain waves. When we're driving, right? You're on autopilot sometimes. When you're reading, when you're meditating, when you're praying, when you are listening to a song and it just kind of takes you somewhere. So we do that naturally. With hypnosis, we're just inducing it for the purpose of doing work in the subconscious. The way that the subconscious is accessed, which is also 95% of your mind. Only 5% of your mind is conscious. Only 5%. And we spend about 85% of our time in that 5% in the conscious. So that means that only 15% of the time are we even looking at, examining 95% of who we are, where our fears, where our beliefs about ourself and others, our patterns, our habits, all those things that we attempt to change in the conscious mind. And that's why it's so difficult. So the hypnosis process, because it's just a tool to get some things done. So the process, right, which is validated by the American Medical Association and the APA, it allows your body to relax enough so that you can concentrate on one thing. So the body becomes relaxed, physically relaxed, right? So that's when you might see someone with their head down. They're still conscious. They're not asleep. Their body, their nervous system is so relaxed that I can have a conversation or make suggestions, like if you want to stop a habit, or if you are reprogramming, releasing, or rewiring something that you no longer want to hold on to. And then installing how you want to think, how you want to believe, you stepping fully into the identity that you desire, whether it's I want to be a Fortune 500 CEO or I want to lose 30 pounds. Doesn't matter what it is, it all works the same way.
Okay. It starts with a real deep understanding and you get there, you meet that in hypnosis.
Mm-hmm. So I actually had a client this morning. We were on screen just like this, and we did a very simple hand-to-face induction, and we were working on her confidence. She's in transition from one life event to the next. And she was like, I need to know that I can get through this. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and get to it. And so when she came back into full consciousness, she was like, oh my gosh, this is just so amazing. I mean, it's really beautiful to watch. And so people think, oh my gosh, because Black folks, when we don't understand something, we like to label it demonic, which is really what our slave owners and oppressors did to our African traditional religions, right? And so now when we see things that we don't have knowledge of and we don't understand, we automatically label it as something that it's not. And I'm here to tell you, we don't have always a year or 6 months to sit on somebody's couch every week for talk therapy. I still do talk therapy. In hypnosis, 6 sessions are equal to about 23, 25 talk therapy sessions. So this allows us to collapse time, not relive things that are challenging or difficult. It also allows us to target things that are very specific that don't live here where we're making decisions. It lives here in the nervous system, in the body, and in the subconscious psyche. And a lot of times when we see our folks walking around and they have these real big reactions to things that feel this small, we are talking about embedded patterns that are not going to change by somebody saying, do better. It's not how that works.
Got it. I love this we talked about this. I was going to love this for you. I wasn't going to do that, but I love this for us, right? That you as a person of color who also does talk therapy, that you have another modality for us to connect with,
Yes.
to really begin
Yes.
this process of healing. So, a couple of other questions for you. In what ways does healing, true heal at the emotional level, change the way we show up in our relationships and our daily choices?
Child, I could talk about that all day, but I won't. But what I will say is we don't realize how when we step into a relationship with another person, we are bringing generations of stuff with us. You show up as one, but you're bringing 100 people with you,
Right,
right?
right,
Stuff.
right.
And we also choose people who are a reflection of parts of us. Maybe not the prettiest parts, maybe the parts that we've done a little bit of work on, but for the most part, you're going to pick someone who is a reminder, a reflection of unresolved parental issue, relationship issues, right? So there's an exercise I do with couples where we look at the negative and the positive. Is actually on my IG page. It's a pin post, but we look at the negative and the positive taken from your caregivers. And then I'm able to tell them, hey, you say you want this, but here's what you're going to select subconsciously. This is the relationship or the dynamic that you're going to connect with and
Okay.
bond with in hopes of having power and resolving the thing. And most people don't, it's not something that we do consciously, right? That's why I work a lot with the subconscious because that's where everything's
Right.
happening. So in relationships, when we are healed, we can separate our emotions from that of our partner, right? We can support without becoming enmeshed. We can support without enabling. We can support without rescuing the individual. And that's how we hear people, particularly women, when they say, I'm doing a lot of the emotional labor in the relationship and I'm exhausted. Because we know studies say that women attend therapy at a rate higher than that of men. And so for a lot of people, that translates to my partner isn't self-aware. My partner is defensive. My partner is not receptive to critique or what I like to call growth gifts, right? So it's always going to put up a barrier to some extent to intimacy. And I'm not just talking about sexual and physical
Right.
intimacy. There are
Emotional.
11 types of intimacy. So I'm
Ooh.
talking about intellectual intimacy, opinion intimacy, intimacy of the heart, intimacy of past experiences, not just sex. So it will cause individuals to become isolated emotionally, even without recognizing it. And that's when we start to hurt people and to actually hurt ourselves. And all of this happens without us being conscious of it. It kind of just, we go, oh my gosh, where did this come from? Well, it's been in the works since the beginning. But for
Right.
whatever reason, we've not had the tools, awareness, willingness to address some things. I think people, when people are dating, when they decide to get into a relationship to be monogamous and, exclusive, committed, they should go to couples therapy. Not when you're about to get married, but before you really start making that emotional investment, go to therapy.
Tell us why. You can't just tell us that and not tell us why. I'm like, and why?
Because okay. My favorite metaphor is a job, right?
Yes.
People put out this job posting, this requisition. It has everything that the person needs. You interview people, right? You're dating and you go, oh, this person. And then you put them on probation. Let's see how they do for, 90 days, right?
Correct.
Well, when we take that analogy and we overlay it in dating, people aren't even as cautious. People go, ooh, I like him or her or them or they, and they make me feel this thing and I want to continue to feel this thing. So I need to really connect with them and kind of be with them. Well, what happens is we aren't aware enough to know that that's what you're supposed to be giving yourself. And so people get connected really quickly and they start to depend on their partner for 3 things that they should get from themselves: control, security, and approval.
Control,
Okay.
security, approval. Okay. I wrote those down.
Yes. So those are supposed to come from you, because if they come from someone else, they can be manipulated and it can be taken away from you. That's why breakups are
Right.
so hard a lot of times. But
Right.
back to the analogy, you may have had a job where in the beginning you showed up, you were on time, you were in dress code, you did everything you needed to do. And after a while, you get comfortable. So maybe you're 5 minutes late. Maybe you take a little extra time on your lunch break. That happens in relationships. So people don't necessarily change in relationships. Their objective changes. So when you are partnering with another human being and entrusting them with who you are, your life, your safety, your love, your mind, your body, you need to be very clear on what their objectives are. And most people are not sitting there going, what are your intentions? Your behavior is this, but your words are this. I'm going to cut my losses. Most people say, well, I've invested 3 months. I don't want to start all over again. And they end up in a situation where they are going to be in the red, right? No return on investment. None.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. Because fear says, well, what if I don't find anybody else? What if I'm alone? But what if they change? People change and you hold yourself. It's almost like, I like to call it at hope point, right? Like you hold yourself hostage in a relationship, hoping that things will become what you desire them to be. And that almost never happens.
So we could clearly be here all day, but we're not going to. I want you to tell us now a couple of things. The Instagram handle that we're going to go visit as a collective and get this caregiver profile. What's your Instagram handle for that?
C. Anderson Live.
Got you. And then for your hypnotherapy sessions, I love the fact that you say you're doing that virtually. How can we just email you, or is it in the link tree on Instagram?
Yeah. So one of my links, it will say work with me, and then there's a tab for 1-to-1, and there's an application to fill out.
Okay.
And it's a beautiful process. I love it. I love it.
We love it. We love that as well. And I love that you're offering that. So as we close, I just have a couple of other questions for you.
Sure.
I think many people, they think they're healing, but they're actually coping, or they're actually just surviving. How can you tell, or how can you help us tell and distinguish between coping, surviving, and actually healing?
Okay. So again, with the metaphors, because the subconscious loves a good metaphor, so I wanted to stick.
Okay.
So I've seen accidents, and you probably have too, where something happens and they go, she survived, right? She's in critical condition. So you can survive, but be on life support. Okay. So it doesn't mean that you are whole. It means that you're not dead. That's what it means. So, when you're surviving, coping looks like rehab, right? You're making it. Maybe you're walking. It's a little painful, right? You're able to move through the day, and coping could be maladaptive, meaning unhealthy coping mechanisms, or adaptive, healthy, helpful mechanisms. But healing, if you have a bruise or a cut or a scar, a gash, whatever, it heals from the inside out. You might have a bandage over it, or your skin creates its own bandage in a scab, but it starts to heal from the inside out. The way that we know it's healing is that it's no longer puffy and red, or maybe it's no longer tender to the touch, triggers, right?
Yep.
And then one day there's just a scar there. The wound is closed, gone. The body has resolved it, right?
Right.
But there's a scar to remind you of what you experienced, what happened, but it's no longer painful, right?
Yeah.
I can talk about some of the most horrific experiences in my life and not shed a tear, because I'm not living in the pain anymore. I'm on the other side of it. So I'm just observing it. I'm just, recalling it. I'm not actively living in it. And so just because you're surviving, it doesn't mean you're living. It doesn't mean you're alive.
Yeah.
And
So many
coping.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And
yeah.
coping doesn't mean that you're coping in a healthy way, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
you could be
Yeah.
numbing.
Yeah. There's a lot of addiction, as we know, because
Mm-hmm.
people are coping and they're just working
Mm-hmm.
through it. They're pushing their way through it. So I have
Mm-hmm.
to ask you, what would you tell someone, see, who's listening to this right now, who many of the things you're saying are resonating, and they're resonating with me, and they want to get on a path to true healing. They want to get unstuck. They want to stop coping. They
Mm-hmm.
want to stop the overeating, the overdrinking, the
Mm-hmm.
drugs, all of that. They want to really begin to heal. What would you tell them?
Yeah.
How can they begin? Or would you tell them?
I would tell them that make the decision, right? Because it's a choice. But the
Okay.
difference between this decision and choice is that choices, you have options. It gets rough, it gets uncomfortable because healing does, and you choose something else. Decisions mean this is the thing I want, and anything else, any other possibility is off the table. So you decide to start your healing process. You need a licensed professional. You need someone outside of yourself to be a sounding board and a mirror, because if you could heal on your own, you would have done it already.
Okay.
Those two things to even just start. So coming to grips with those two factors sets the foundation for whatever the next right step is for them.
Okay. So making the decision and finding a licensed clinical therapist outside of themselves. And
Mhm.
then the final question for you, oh wise woman. What message would you want listeners to hold on to if they're in the midst of their healing journey, but it doesn't feel good? They've started it, but these wounds are popping out and the scabs, they keep opening, there are triggers everywhere, and this is too hard.
So labeling something as hard will cause you to quit. Saying I am trying to, right, but it's hard will cause you to quit. You are when you're healing, first of all, you're going to be healing until you expire. That's how it works across your lifespan. So the thing that sets you in place wherever you are currently is I am becoming a better version of me.
Yep.
Becoming, right? That is a process that means that the destination is not tomorrow, because you're still becoming, and you're becoming for whatever life is asking you to rise up to. So don't think of it as, oh, once I go to therapy, I'm going to be perfect. I'm going to be, everything that I'm supposed to be. That's not how it happens. It is a continual process that you become stronger in handling, that you become wiser in handling, and give yourself the grace. Healing is not supposed to feel good all the time. It's not supposed to be fun. If it were, everybody would do it.
Everybody. Yeah.
So
Because we
give
all gravitate
yourself
towards fun.
grace. Yes, yes. And a good therapist is going to help you sustain through the ebb and the flow of wherever you are in your journey.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I know that I am going to run to my phone after I turn it on after our conversation. I'm going to go to Instagram. C.E. Anderson Live is where I'm going, and I'm going to make sure that I follow immediately. And I may even be in touch with you about your hypnotic sessions or
Oh, well,
hypnosis
wonderful.
session.
I am happy to support.
Wonderful. And I invite everyone listening today. Steve, thank you so very much for your time. And we want to invite everyone listening today to really connect with your authentic self, to truly elevate your self-awareness of your journey, of everything you've been through, the bad things and the good things, and make that commitment, that decision, as C said, to true healing. Whatever you may be doing to cope, to survive, it's not good enough. You can live a truly abundant life. It is waiting for you if you get on the other side of pains that you've experienced in this life. I say it to myself. There's some areas that even in this conversation, I'm like, oh yeah, she's right. There are definitely some triggers. That's what those things were. And I've got to spend that time, invest that time with healing. So we love that you are a therapist that we can trust and is available to us remotely. And you practice throughout the country. May God continue to bless you. And may God bless each and every one of our freedom
not
athletes.
perfect, but I'm not done. I'm on the healing journey with each day of the ride.